Hello and welcome to BENCHA Movie Club. My name is Ben.
And I'm Charlie.
Each podcast will be discussing different films, all different genres, different decades.
Yeah, and this week I've picked An American Werewolf in London from 1981, written and directed by John Landis. Most notable person of the crew, I guess, is Rick Baker, special effects makeup, but we'll get into that afterwards. I know John Landis, he wrote this, he was like 19 or something. I think he's working on Kelly's Heroes.
Yeah, I know he was young, at 18, 19 when he wrote it.
Yeah, and they was travelling through Yugoslavia, that was it, 1969 Yugoslavia, and he was with this guy called Novi, who was driving, and as they was driving along, they had to stop because there was like a Roman gypsy burial, and they was wrapping the body up, and they was burying it lengthwise. They was burying them...
So feet first?
Feet first.
Right.
And when they asked why, they said it was in case they come back from the dead. And later on, him and this Novi were laughing back at their hotel, going, God, how ridiculous. Imagine if, like, the dead person came in here now. Would we take it serious? Would we just think this is a joke and start laughing? And that's what started his first seeds on thinking, no, like with Jack and David, where Jack comes back from the dead.
Right, I was going to say, how does that time with werewolves? But
well, it's more about the dead coming back to life.
Right,
so that was that one thing that actually started it more than a werewolf thing.
Right.
With the werewolf, he loved the old Universal Wolfman films, but he didn't like the cross dissolve, where you'd have...
Well, that's all it was. In the olden days, it was literally a walk behind a tree and then they would have a bit more prosthetics on.
So to avoid the cross dissolve, he'd been working with Rick Baker anyway. Rick Baker done makeup on Star Wars and the cantina scene with all the monsters and stuff. And he said, I don't want to do lap dissolve. I don't want to hide the transformation. It has to be in bright light. So I'm going to have it all in one setting. And I want to see the transformation on screen, which is obviously a huge task for Rick Baker if you want to turn an entire human. And Rick Baker also wanted it to be a biped. He wanted it to be like the Wolfman standing on two legs, turning into a werewolf.
Right.
But John Landis, to his credits, insisted, no, I want it to turn into like a proper wolf.
Yeah, well, I think this worked out better. I think it's more effective with it being a four-legged, even though you don't see the back legs. But I think also... because you see like the bulkiness of his frame, it looks sort of more intimidating. It looks scarier. It looks more vicious. It looks like it could do more damage because of how big it is. Whereas I don't think you would have got that kind of effect with a standing up kind of torso kind of man. I don't think it would have looked as scary.
No, I don't think so. Because you think realistically, if this man who looks really hairy running at you, but there's a big group here, you'd think, well, I fancy my chances here. We'll bash him up.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like a tiger, a savage animal, which the wolf's bigger than a tiger, it's like the werewolf in this is massive. Like you said, how broad it is, you know they ain't got a chance. So when he's going through Piccadilly Circus at the end, someone crash into it or something, someone try and take it out, because no one's going to be able to kill him till they get the rifles in, obviously. And John Landis says he showed too much of the wolf, which I remember even as a kid. I want to see more of the wolf. I want to see more.
But that's a good film. When it leaves you wanting more. Like he even said, I think Rick Baker said that it was all trial and error for him. He didn't know how this was going to come out. He didn't have that much faith. It was luck, a lot of it. He goes, because he'd never done this before.
I think he had loads of fans, obviously probably off the back of Star Wars. Even back then, people would have been really impressed with the cantina scene, people saying, look, I'm an upcoming, I want to do special effects. So it was actually like a group of about half a dozen of like these young people who were willing to work for next to nothing, who done the transformation with him. They stuck with him for like a number of years. Michael Jackson saw this and then said, that's who I want for Thriller. So he hired John Landis and Rick Baker to make Thriller.
Yeah, the best music video of all time, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and he had like the same crew on it.
One of the most iconic, at least, anyway.
For Christ's sake, somebody come on street here! Cobra Station! Turn the big rifles! Will you people get out of the way?
Obviously, to do that, they had to do it at like between 2 and 4 in the morning over a weekend. I think it was Saturday and a Sunday.
You'd never get away with that now.
No. John Landis, to try to get to win the Metropolitan Police over, he held a screening of Blues Brothers and invited all these police to come along.
About 200 plus, wasn't it?
Yeah. Then at the end, he's come out and said, I'm really glad you enjoyed that. I'm actually shooting a film this weekend down Piccadilly Circus. We're shooting between 2 and 4 in the morning. Hopefully there won't be too much traffic, wink, wink. And the police cornered it off. It weren't like an official thing. It weren't like, right, he's put in this permit that we're going to close off the roads. The police would close the roads off their own back as a sign of gratitude for him showing them the film. And when they wrapped, it was like I think it was like a week later or a little time afterwards, there was the Brixton riots. If the Brixton riots had happened before the filming, chances are the film wouldn't have, they wouldn't be able to shoot it.
Oh, another thing I was thinking, at the very beginning of the film it says for Jim O'Rourke.
Yeah, we looked.
I think it was an old friend of John Landis who died of lung cancer. So he had then banned smoking on the set.
Right. This film's probably best known for its makeup. The Academy invented a special effects award to give it to Rick Baker for these special effects on this. It was the first recipient of it. Obviously, not just the werewolf, but you got Griffin Dunn coming back from the dead.
Yeah. With
the bit of flesh hanging from his neck.
The effects, the makeup in that, it's untouchable still. I don't think it will be matched because people rely too much on CGI.
And CGI dates so quickly.
And also, the thing is, you always sort of see, like, even if it's done really well, you can always sort of look and go, yeah, it's something missing.
And the challenge of Jack is, whereas other films, you can build on the makeup and make it bigger, so he's expanding, which is easy, but for this he had to take away because Jack's body's decomposing. That's why because he's obviously each time the makeup's getting more and more gruesome as he's decomposing more. But his bit in the cinema was a puppet, obviously. You can tell it's a puppet. But it was Griffin Dunn controlling it.
Yeah.
So that he could say his lines and move the mouth at the same time.
Well, he wouldn't have been able to have the big holes in his face and all that, would he? No. He wouldn't have been able to do that as with any type of makeup.
No. Rick Baker, with previously working on Star Wars, that might be why that... Was it Gerald Bringsley?
Yeah, Michael Carter's the actor that plays
Gerald
Bringsley in American Werewolf, which is the man who gets murdered in the tube station. He was Bib Fortuna in Star Wars.
Bib Fortuna, yeah.
Which is the man with a big sort of
snakes.
Head. No, it's like a big sort of thing coming out of his head that's wrapping around
his neck. Yeah, he's
I've seen the original 3 Star Wars from the 70s and 80s. I have not watched anything new, but he was in one of them ones. So that was that's the original one.
He was Jabba the Hutt's one of Jabba the Hutt's assistants. Is the one who comes.
But I recognise his face. I looked at him. I recognise that character from Star Wars, and I did not ever put him as the man in.
Bringsley.
Yeah, because of look at the makeup. But then, as you said, he probably might have got this through working with Rick Baker on Star Wars. Yeah,
and I love the soundtrack as well.
I like the fact as well. Every single song in it has the word moon, which is a thing that he wanted. There was a couple of songs he wasn't able to get. There was a song by...
wasn't it like... Because he's got 3 versions of Blue Moon. So he's got Bobby Vinton, Sam Cooke and... Marcel's. He wanted, I believe, Bob Dylan's version of Blue Moon.
Right.
He also wanted Elvis's version of Blue Moon. And apart from the 5 songs in it moon related, so you've got the 3 Blue Moons, you've got Bad Moon Rising, Creedence Clearwater Revival, and Moondance, Van Morrison. You've also got the Elmer Bernstein score, which is a beautiful score. I don't think it gets played enough. And obviously, he'd written a segment for the transformation scene, which I've watched side by side with the transformation scene, and it just seems more traditional horror. Yeah. So I like that John Landis went with the Sam Cooke Blue Moon, and I like the little cutaway to say like Mickey Mouse standing on the side, showing that he's in modern day, he's in a human
I always thought he had a tear in his eye.
Who? Yeah.
Mickey Mouse. I always thought he had a tear in his eye. I don't know why, but like, why would he?
Crying.
Yeah, I don't know why in my brain. Maybe because I was a kid when I was watching it, thinking, Mickey Mouse is crying.
It must have been the VHS we had. There must have been something on there that makes it look like a tear, because I thought the same thing. Oh, look, Mickey Mouse is crying.
But I think a lot of people think that. I think a lot of people have looked and thought, oh yeah, Mickey Mouse has got like a tear coming out. But then why would he?
I love the cast in it, obviously. Where you got Jenny Agutter, who's
she was known for the Railway Children.
Yeah. Now, of course, she's in Call the Midwife.
Yeah, she's done quite a lot.
Yeah, she's been.
I didn't know she lived in America. She moved to America. She moved to America. I think when she was about 21 to do film because she was more theatre.
But she has been in, apart from Call the Midwife, she's been in Marvel films as part of. There's a council of people that are silhouetted.
Yeah.
Who are sort of running Shield. Who's, if you'd seen the films, you know what I'm talking about. And as soon as I see her in it, I thought that's Jenny Agutter.
And you can tell by her voice.
Yeah,
she's got a very distinctive voice. Very old, very sort of very British,
very well spoken.
very well spoken. She's got a lovely voice actually. She's got a really nice voice.
Then you got David Norton and Griffin Dunn, obviously as the two Americans who I like that they didn't. Originally, the studios wanted him to go with Dan Aykroyd and James Belushi.
Yeah, because of the Blues Brothers. Yeah,
because of the Blues Brothers, and also because of their star power.
It would have been too comedic.
Yeah, although it might have worked in the sense you think, well, I know they're not going to die, and then you would have seen. I imagine John Belushi would have been the one who's Jack, who would have been killed, and Dan Aykroyd would have been David.
Yeah.
But I like that they picked. He wanted to pick lesser known actors. He wanted to pick it in a way that you didn't know. You could get past that and just enjoy the story. And then there's the pub. You got, what is it, Brian Glover?
Brian Glover, yeah.
Yeah, and Rick Mayall's in there as well.
Yeah, Rick Mayall, and how he got Rick Mayall in that film, which I always thought was a bit weird. Rick Mayall being in it, but this is obviously before the Young Ones. They was filming Raiders of the Lost Ark over and.
Yeah, loads like the Star Wars, Raiders, the Indiana Jones films. Loads of big films were shot over in like Pinewood Studios and Elstree because of the tax breaks that the Americans get over here.
Well, Frank Oz and Jim Henson, like they took John Landis to the Comedy Store where they see Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmondson, and he liked him so much that he offered them both a part in his film. Only Rick Mayall turned up. But he was glad because he didn't actually have a part for him, but he liked his face, so he wanted him as part of the crew. See, a lot of people might not know Rick Mayall in the States. I mean, we know him from England. We obviously know him from the Young Ones, from Bottom, from the comic strip, from Filthy Rich and Cat Flap. But he's probably known in America for Drop Dead Fred.
Yeah, Drop Dead Fred, definitely.
I can't think of anything else that he would have been known for. Is there anything?
No, he never really made it stateside. There's a few roles.
Fantastic actor.
Yeah, there's a few times I've seen like American films. I think he would have been great in that part. He would have been great in this part.
It's so funny,
but it just never took over there. He's a natural comedic actor, and he's a great actor anyway.
Yeah. Died very young, actually.
John Woodvine is the Doctor Hirsch. There's a little cameo by Nick Cotton from EastEnders.
Yeah, you said that, and I couldn't see him. He was one of the police at the end, but I couldn't. I looked, I couldn't see him.
No, but you got to remember, this was a good 4 years.
Yeah, but you'd
before.
see his face, you'd recognise his face.
So he was very young in this. He was like sort of probably about 18, something.
But I couldn't pick him out. I couldn't pick him out. So like,
it's mad that he's on the credits though.
Yeah, and he's one of the sort of top credits as a police officer.
So you'd have thought he'd been significant enough that you spot him every time.
Yeah.
But no, it's very hard to see. And I love the locations in this as well, because growing up in London, it was always fun to see these locations. So two of the other songs which John Landis wanted for this film was Cat Stevens' Moonshadow and Bob Dylan's version of Blue Moon. And apparently Bob Dylan said no for religious reasons, and Cat Stevens believed werewolves were real. I mean, I do like both of them songs. I think... Again, I wouldn't change anything about the film, but I could see, if they'd been in it, it would have still worked, because the charm of the film's still there. Oh, you've also got Alan Ford plays the taxi driver. Now, Alan Ford, most people would know as Bricktop from Snatch.
Also, the police officer in Trafalgar Square.
Yeah.
I can't think of the actor's name, but he was a police officer in a TV series, The Bill. Yeah. Also, David Norton was he was quite well known in America at the time because of being the star of the Dr. Pepper adverts. He'd been in a few Dr. Pepper adverts, but then after this film, he was sacked from the Dr. Pepper franchise because of full frontal nudity. Also, they wanted, in the transformation scene, he wanted it to be full frontal nudity, but because David Norton wasn't circumcised, they couldn't do that. Because he's supposed to be Jewish in this.
And that's the only reason they didn't?
Yeah.
Harry Berman was played by Jeffrey Burridge, who actually died a few years later, age 38 in 1987. He died from age-related virus.
That's right. He's part of the couple, isn't he? Like the happy couple from the cinema. Judith and Harry, yeah, the ones that are like really upbeat and cheery, like they're from the TV program Rainbow, the children's program. They're like that.
Well,
I love them in it. I think they're so funny. Like they're like sort of proper upbeat. They don't care that they've been killed.
Oh yeah, they're funny, and it's good juxtaposition, because at the end when you got the guy from Star Wars who died on the tube station, giving him a hard time, saying, "You must die, Kessler," and it cuts straight to them two. Hello, hello.
Yeah.
It's nice how it sort of breaks the tension
funny.
a little bit.
It's funny. They're the best dead ones, I think, them two.
And it's so well balanced because at the time, John Landis was going strength to strength because he'd had Animal House, which was big in America, Blues Brothers, which was big everywhere, then this, American Werewolf in London, Trading Places, which again was a great film. Of course, I think the last really great film he made was Coming to America, but he went off kilter then. And I think a big part of that is to do what happened on the Twilight Zone film, which he was working on in the mid-80s, where 2 children died, and Vic Morrow, the actor...
Yeah, that's Jennifer Jason Leigh's dad.
That's right, yeah. So they were working on the set late at night in the opening segment of Twilight Zone, where Vic Morrow plays this racist guy who's now almost like quantum leaping into these different bodies, seeing what prejudice is like from the other side. And this helicopter's chasing him, and he's got these 2 Vietnamese kids in his arms as he's running away. The helicopter, some pyrotechnics went off, the helicopter crashed into him, decapitated Vic Morrow and one of the children, and it crushed the other child. So obviously there was a big investigation into this. They shouldn't have been shooting that late at night. There was no parents there, and the legal case went on for years, and it was John Landis directing at the time was obviously some of the blame was put on his doorstep. It looked like he was going to go to prison. He actually asked Eddie Murphy to come be a character witness, and Eddie Murphy didn't, so that caused a bit of tension between them two because they'd made all these films together, Trading Places, Coming to America, eventually reconciling for Beverly Hills Cop 3. It was almost like up to that point, John Landis
was untouchable.
Yeah, he was like almost like his popularity was almost as high
Steven
as
Spielberg.
Exactly,
yeah.
Spielberg, who's a good friend of his, and he was friends with Spielberg's in Blues Brothers, isn't he? At the very end, that's the cameo.
If you look, all his films were equally as good, so he could have easily gone that road. Yeah, because it's not a name you really hear a lot nowadays, and I didn't realise that was the reason why. That.
Well, it's definitely a factor. You know, like we were saying about Roman Polanski. As soon as sometimes something can have such a shadow over you, then obviously your career is going to be affected. There's certain certain films, like for example with Roman Polanski, like even though I don't know what films. I know Roman Polanski from the fact that he was married to Sharon Tate, that was the Manson killings, wasn't it, in 1969? That's how I know him from, and also the fact that he done Rosemary's Baby. But I won't watch any of... Did you watch Rosemary's Baby?
I did see it years ago. It was okay, I think, from what I remember. But I won't be sort of reviewing that on a podcast because I'm not going to be promoting someone that's basically the.
Yeah, but this is the problem. I really like Chinatown, which he directed with Jack Nicholson. But I watched that before I was really aware of Polanski's connection. Right. And say like Bryan Singer, some of the stuff that he's done. Who's
Bryan Singer?
He's director of Usual Suspects. I'd never worked with him or Roman Polanski, but I think it's a shame sometimes when someone does something deplorable if you let it affect your love of their art. This is why I would never want to meet my heroes. No, they say never meet your heroes. I'd never like to meet like my favourite musicians. I wouldn't like to meet Roger Waters or Paul McCartney or someone like that in case they're an arsehole to me. Because then after that, I wouldn't enjoy their music.
No.
I don't, and this is why I think...
But I sort of think that also, like, for example, like, I'm lucky that there's no sort of classic films that I absolutely love by anyone that I know has done something really, like, unforgivable. Whereas it's easy for me to sit, like, for example, I'll go, like, I won't cover Rosemary's Baby because it wasn't a big deal to me anyway. No. Also, the fact that it's by him. I don't want to promote anyone that is...
Well, that's fair enough. It's easy to do it if you don't like the product, but
it's supposed to be a good film, that Rosemary's Baby, but I don't think it made that much of an impact on me.
The problem is if you worry too much about the people's personal life, if you can't separate the art from the person, you might be in trouble because say like you think of your favourite films, your favourite directors. If something came out about John Hughes, which you thought, oh my God, that's terrible, does that mean you couldn't enjoy Breakfast Club anymore? If something came out about Steven Spielberg, you think of the amount of films that he's been involved with and you think, I feel so bad watching these films now.
Yeah.
Because, so, you need to be
I
able
think
to
that
sort of separate
it definitely taints it. It definitely would taint it enough that you sort of think, I can't enjoy it to the same level as what it was.
Yeah, but you can also look at it this way. You can think, I can enjoy the film because he's only one part of it. The director is only one part of it. You had a crew who I'm sure are really decent working people, cast who I'm sure are all brilliant. If the film is littered with like disgusting people, then obviously you think, oh, I don't want to watch that.
Yeah.
I realize I don't look so hot, David. But I thought you'd be glad to see me. David, you're hurting my feelings.
Hurting your feelings? Has it occurred to you that it might be unsettling to see you rise from the grave to visit me?
Sorry to be upsetting you, David, but I had to come.
Aren't you supposed to be buried someplace in New York?
Yeah. Your parents came to my funeral. I was surprised at how many people came.
Now, why should you be surprised? You were a very well-liked person.
Yeah, I was, wasn't I?
Well, I liked you.
Debbie Klein cried a lot.
Oh, God. Am I asleep now or what?
So you know what she does? She's so grief-stricken. She runs to find solace in Mark Levine's bed.
Mark Levine?
An asshole. Life mocks me even in death.
American Werewolf in London, so the film opens with them backpacking on the back of a little tipper lorry filled with lambs, like with sheep, so they're like lambs to the slaughter.
Yeah.
Heading for East Proctor, and they're talking about backpacking through Europe. So they go to the Slaughtered Lamb pub. Now this is all supposed to be, it's set in Yorkshire, but it's actually shot in a tiny hamlet in south of Wales called Crickhardine. So the inside would have been shot in London, which would have been easier for those of the actors to get to. Because when you think about it, that means there's only really 4 of the actors had to shoot in Wales. You'd have had the 2 Americans, you'd have had the one who's the dart player, and the doctor. They're the only ones you see the outdoor shots. So all the others.
And also, who's the bloke that's
Brian Glover as well.
Brian Glover.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. So 5 of them. It would have only had to been 5 actors who had to make the trek to Wales. Then obviously they get attacked on the moors, and I know that when Griffin Dunn's getting attacked, he ended up pulling against the werewolf puppet, didn't he? So
He ripped a bit.
yeah. So
They had to sort of patch it up. So then when he went in for it the second time, he really went for it. John Landis. Was it John Landis?
Rick Baker.
Rick Baker.
Rick Baker's
He really sort of like went, right, I'm going to get you for that.
Yeah, you're bloody ruining my puppet. So then, obviously, David wakes up after the attack in hospital in London.
Sorry. I just want to. Apparently, the scene where he was being ripped apart was filmed in London somewhere. I think that was in a park in London. I don't think the Moors parts was filmed in Wales. I think that was actually in a park in London.
Then he's in the hospital, and you got a little cameo from Frank Oz as the ambassador from the American Embassy.
That's right.
Frank Oz, who voiced Miss Piggy and Fozzie Bear, and they have that little Muppet Show clip in one of his dream segments where the kids are watching the Muppet Show, and that isn't from an actual episode of the Muppet Show. That was shot specifically for the film.
Because also there was the television sequence when he's flipping over the channels when he's in the apartment when he's before he transforms into the werewolf. There's Naughty Nina, and I think she's Lindsay Drew, and I don't know if she was. I think she was a page 3 girl or
she's a new person. She's real Nina Carter, but she was basically like the Jordan of the day.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, Nina Carter, who plays when he's flicking over the channels in the apartment before he turns into a werewolf, and there's like Naughty Nina, and she was actually a page 3 girl, Nina Carter, and also an actress and an occasional singer.
So when you think about it, he used those 3 channels because at the time Britain only had 3 channels. So you had BBC 1, BBC 2, and ITV. So he chose each channel just to sort of show something British. So you had
like darts.
So you had the test card, which was something was weird for an American audience to see. Darts, which is
the test card wouldn't have been on until like late at night. That was the thing. The test card used to be on when the telly finished, and then that would be played throughout the night.
But then afterwards, you see he opens the door and it's daytime. So it's weird that it was on at that time.
Yeah.
But I think it was more for the point to show something very British.
Yeah.
So then it showed the darts, and then it goes on to ITV and shows a page 3 girl. Because the idea of a page 3 girl is obviously ludicrous in America. So
it was just a regular thing. Every single day you had it in the Sun, in the News of the World, in the Daily Star.
Yeah.
It was always about page 3 girls. It was just, it wasn't even thought about.
And anyone who don't know what page 3 girl is, it's basically just a woman topless in the middle of your morning paper.
Yeah, on page 3.
On page 3. And, you know, it doesn't matter that children will be looking through the paper. There's this, like, grinning bimbo with her boobs out.
Not necessarily all bimbos, I'm sure.
But you think for an American coming over here, John Landis, he would have gone, oh, my God, open up the newspaper. What is this? And people would have gone, it's every day.
Yeah.
Every day a different girl with her boobs out, you know, and they pay them well. What's the problem? And
I think we was all just desensitised to lots of stuff back then. I think things that we didn't see as a problem is...
But it's strange because you think of a newspaper like The Sun, for example, which would be accessible, would be on the table in a cafe. Kids would look on the table, go, oh, look, oh, boobs.
Yeah, I used to, all the time.
And yet,
I used to.
You couldn't have it on daytime telly.
Budget of this film. What do you think the budget was?
3 million?
5.8 million.
Okay.
Which is actually quite a lot, really, for the 80s. Well, it would have been 1980, 70s, maybe 79, 80, it was probably filmed.
Kind of, for the type of film it was, for them to give that much money. Oh, it's quite an amount, but it probably sounds about right. Yeah, go on.
Because of the special effects, I suppose that's where a lot of the money's gone.
And what did it make?
Right, so the budget was 5.8 million. And the box office, how much do you think it took?
7.
What?
7 million.
Well, 5.8 and it made 7.
I don't know. I don't know how successful it was.
Well, I'm not even going to let you guess because you're way off. It's 62 million.
Good. I'm glad to say it was successful.
Also, David Norton was 30 when he made this film, and Griffin Dunn was 27.
Right. And how old was...
I think they're supposed to be...
how old was Jenny Agutter?
I'd say she's probably about the same sort of age, 26, 27.
Right.
But they're supposed to obviously all be...
Younger.
They're supposed to be teens. She's supposed to be older than them.
Oh, really?
Well, I assume she would be. If they're supposed to be probably about 19, 20, 21.
Well, she's a young nurse. She could have a 20
Actually, she probably would have been roughly the same sort of age as David.
Yeah.
But he also had a proper crush on her. He'd seen her in a play. And he had a massive crush on her. And I see an interview thing with her. And the interviewee said, did you realise he had such a crush on you? She went, no, he never said nothing. But he was like, she goes, how was it filming the sex scenes with him, knowing that he fancied you? She goes, well, I didn't know he did. She goes, if he did, she goes, he reckons he told you. And she goes, well, not that I remember. She goes, okay.
Too polite. The scenes with, obviously, the attacks, you got the homeless people on the south of the river, that beautiful view of Tower Bridge.
Yeah.
That scene was a lot more gruesome, wasn't it?
Well, apparently they done the test audience with the film originally, and they had to cut out a few minutes worth of footage. There was the sex scene was longer and more graphic, and the killing of the homeless people was so disturbing. They cut the whole scene out, which I don't know. I can't imagine what it could have been and what could have happened for them to have cut the whole scene.
It might have been more like, because you do have some gruesome attacks like Jack getting attacked. It might have been something similar to that. And it's not so much that you can't have it in a film, but if you've got too much of it, they say, no, this is too much. It's making people uncomfortable. You're just going over the top gore now. Whereas if you take that back, then the first attack is the most gruesome one. And the ones after that, you can just, your mind can make up what's happening. You think, oh God, I bet those homeless people were ripped to shreds. You don't necessarily have to be shown it. Regarding the sex scene, I think the sex scene's long enough.
Yeah.
You know, I think it probably would have been a bit too gratuitous if they went on for too long.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to see an uncut version of the film, but just for a completionist's reason, like where we've mentioned before about uncut, like director's cuts of films.
Yeah.
You watch a director's cut and you think, oh, it's good to see them scenes, but I'd rather watch the theatrical version.
Yeah, there's always, I think what it is, if you're such a fan of a film that you want more, and if there's loads of these scenes cut out, you think, oh, I want to see the whole film as it is. But then if you look at it in the film, sometimes it just doesn't add to the film. Sometimes you look and go, well, I see why they cut this bit out. because the film is fantastic as it is anyway, as you know, otherwise you wouldn't love it so much. It doesn't feel like nothing's missing. Would it add to the film? Would you want to sort of watch that version?
No.
Or would you just need to see it once? So you've seen it, so it's in your head, so okay, well, I'll just carry on watching my normal film. But yeah, I know what you're saying. It would be lovely to see the scenes just once, at least, just so you can go, right, well, yeah, I can see that.
Well, you think back in the day, I remember watching something like a deleted scene. It was like gold dust to come by. Oh, look, we've got a deleted scene from Jaws. You think, really? I want to see that. Oh, imagine if that was in the film. Now, there's so many cuts of films. There's so many, like the Justice League. There's now the Snyder cut, and everyone goes, "Oh wow, look, there's so much more."
It's too much.
There's too much. Yeah,
too much.
There's reason films are cut back. There's a reason they don't just do it willy nilly. They don't go, "Oh, let's cut that out to be horrible." They do test audiences for that reason. They'll change films. We might not always agree. Sometimes you get to watch the original version. Like I prefer the original Fatal Attraction to the one that we've got. The one where she kills herself and Michael Douglas gets arrested because she frames Michael Douglas for her death. Right. I think that's quite a poetic ending. Whereas
this is more cinematic, isn't it? The ending that we've got.
Yeah, an American test audience was like, no, that bitch has to die.
Yeah.
So then they went back and they shot this and turned her into like a monster.
Right.
But you think up to that point, yeah, she's very sort of paranoid. But the film is just about a cheating guy and a scorned woman.
Yeah, but she does kill their rabbit.
Yeah, she kills a rabbit. She's a bit nuts. I'm not saying she's okay, but then they turn her up even more so that she's now like a horror villain. You know, coming in trying to kill them all. She's like, I've lost the plot, which isn't fair really, because at the end of the day, she was a single woman. He's the scumbag cheating on his wife.
Yeah.
But back then, they was like, no, we like Michael Douglas. He's the hero. We've got to reconcile the family. This will bring them both together. It would have been so much more poetic if she'd died, but then it might not have been as big a film.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there was another scene that was cut from this, which after he kills the deer, he wakes up and he says, I just killed Bambi. Which is,
maybe that was... It's finding the right balance. Yeah. So they might have watched it and gone, there's too many jokes. We've just had a joke. You've got to pan it out, because we're not making a out-and-out comedy. It's a horror comedy. So you have jokes here and there to catch you off guard.
I think also the end scene at Piccadilly Circus was... There was more scenes in that, which I would like to see that.
Oh, I'd love to have seen that.
Because that is so fast that I would still like to see what the other scenes was.
Yeah, it's so kinetic, the way it's just like smash, 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 smash. The person flying out of the bus.
But it's done fantastic. And then there's dead bodies laying on the floor, someone flying out of a window, someone going through a window here.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the body count that night would have been at least about 30, 40 people.
Oh, well, this is it. Up to that point, let's count off. So Jack dies first, and then the guy who was the wolf, the original werewolf, the member of the community. They
all obviously know there's something. When this is going back to the beginning of the film, they know there's something out there. They know that it's going to kill them.
It's safer to be in the pub with the pentangle.
Yeah.
And let the werewolf go out on the moors, kill sheep, whatever.
So you reckon, I remember we spoke about this before, and you said it probably might be a family member of one of them, or just a friend.
Member of the community.
At certain times, like when it's the full moon, he sort of goes wandering off, and it's like, just let him go out and then, kill a couple of sheep or something like that, because they all sort of stay in the pub.
Well, this is it. He probably, by that point, you imagine, I imagine the backstory. I wouldn't want it to confirmed. I wouldn't want a prequel or anything like that. I hate prequels and stuff like that. You don't need them. But this is the whole point. You can make up your own mind. I like to think that it was a little community, like how you have little villages in this country. It was very like, this is our village, get out. And he was probably a long-standing member of the community. Something's happened that he's turned into a werewolf or whatever. He knows that he's a werewolf, so he goes, well, look, it's a blue moon tonight, it's a full moon tonight and tomorrow night. I better go head out, I'll see you later, hope you're all safe. He goes out as far as he can, probably drives out to the middle of the moors, where he's far from humans, turns into the werewolf, does his killing, wakes up naked out no humans have been killed. Maybe he kills a bit of wildlife. And then he goes back and checks everyone's all right. And maybe, like you said, Brian Glover could have been his brother, something like that. And it's like, right, we know what time it is. We get together, we have a laugh in the pub. Let's not think about it. And we know what's going on out there.
So why did they let them two go, though? That's the thing.
Well, this is it. I think what happened was they don't like the idea that these strangers have turned up on the night where their friends turned into a werewolf.
Yeah.
So at first they're sort of, okay, well, they're here now. Let's carry on. But as soon as they're asking about the pentangle, the village gets paranoid. we're going to be found out and they're going to capture our friend and kill him.
But where are they going to be walking to? They must know they're in the middle of nowhere, so they're thinking, so we're sending these 2 young boys out.
I don't think they was thinking, because they're arguing, aren't they? Going, you can't let them go.
Yeah.
Just go, get
Yeah.
out of here.
Yeah.
They're probably hoping, look, just go, you might be all right, because it's a huge moors, the werewolf might be on the other side, he won't get ya. And then they start thinking, what have we done?
Yeah.
These 2 boys are going to get killed. So they could have ages ago hunted down the werewolf and killed it.
Yeah.
There's a reason they didn't, and I think it was probably because he was a member of the community, a friend. But they realise they've screwed up, so then they get their guns, go out, manage to save David. So they're human beings. They're not like a psycho community. It's not like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre family. They're everyday people.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to the people who died. So you got Jack, the original werewolf. Then the first person he killed was the couple. Then he killed the 3 tramps and the guy on the tube. So up to that point, before Piccadilly Circus, the death count was 8 people.
Right.
As soon as Piccadilly Circus happened, he obviously killed the patrons inside the porno cinema, because you don't see any of them run out, and there was about half a dozen of them in there. He would have killed all them. He killed the usher who comes down, and then he kills the detective and
biting his head off.
And then you see loads of people die in Piccadilly Circus.
Apparently, they during that scene when he's bursting through the porno theatre, they had lots of sort of bystanders that they thought it was really like some wild animal in there.
Yeah.
They didn't, but he kept it in because he wanted to get their reactions. They thought there was actual, well, obviously Piccadilly Circus, you can't shut it down. So there is people wandering around, and they actually thought it was some sort of proper wild animal that was trying to burst out of the porno theatre.
Yeah.
So then when it did, I'm sure that they was like, their reactions was quite scary. That was quite realistic.
Yeah. No, I love that. The way the film ends as well, where goes down the alleyway.
Yeah.
Obviously she says, I love you. And you see his snarl drop for a moment, but then it comes back.
Yeah.
Which I prefer that it comes back. Because just that little detail, if his snarl had stopped altogether and they'd shot him, it'd be like, oh, so the werewolf was about to get in, like, fall in love.
They was about to kiss.
Yeah. So it's like, no, it's like for a second you think, is that going to happen?
Yeah.
And then no, it goes to leap for her, and then they shoot
That's
it.
fantastic.
She's sobbing.
And it ends.
And then bam, 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 it goes straight to the Marcel's Blue Moon. I think it's perfect sort of ending. It's like you're in shock almost. You're like, that was it. I was wondering the whole time, how's he going to get better?
Yeah.
How's he going to get out of this?
Yeah.
Is he going to... Which, again, is what they try to do.
I like a film when it ends, and it's it. And it just ends, and that's it. It's like, rather than going, oh, okay, what's going to happen in the next one, and the next one. And apparently as well, it nearly got shot in Paris because of the working visas of Griffin Dunn, I think. I don't know, it might have been David Norton as well, but I think there was a problem with the working visas, that they was going to take the whole film to film in Paris. So then they sort of realised they was going to lose a lot of money, because obviously all the production and all the work it was going to achieve filming in London, that they worked it out and they was able to sort it out. But they were threatening to move the whole production to, so it wouldn't have been American Werewolf in London, it would have been American Werewolf in Paris, which it would have been lovely, because there's some lovely landmarks and stuff like that in Paris. But I think London, at that time in London, early 80s, was proper iconic. You had the red phone boxes, you had Trafalgar Square, when they had loads of pigeons, because they ain't got pigeons there no more, because they got rid of them all.
You had the punks.
You had Piccadilly Circus.
And this is it, Piccadilly Circus was where he wanted to make the Wolfman.
You had the Tube.
Yeah, he literally wanted to make the Wolfman in modern day, and Piccadilly Circus at the time was modern day. It's perfect for the 80s. If it had happened around like the Arc de Triomphe or something in Paris, you'd have gone, well, that could have happened any time. Yeah. It's not really a modern film. It could be like... and watching American Werewolf in Paris, you get an idea of the kind of things.
I wonder if it would have been French people they would have killed. Would it have had to be in subtitles? That's what I'm saying. Because everyone that they killed wouldn't have been English in Paris.
No. It would have just been like French sensibilities. It would have been like people with French accents, probably. Right. Maybe they might have had like people talking French with subtitles. But I don't think it would have been as good. I like the connection between... Because Americans are a lot closer to British people than they are to the French. You know, we're very similar in cultures, but so the differences between us of what he picks up on. You know, the difference between an American and French is so much. It might as well be like an American Werewolf in Zanzibar. It doesn't matter, because it's like a completely foreign country. But what's so funny is we're divided by the same language. both speak English, but there's little like the accents and little sort of things that culturally acceptable over here and different from America, like the things with the page 3 girl, the darts, the snooker, black cabs, all this stuff, the punks and everything, and you think it's...
I think they had punks. They had punks.
They
as well.
did, but it was different. It was like a different kind of punk. If you look at their punks compared to our punks.
Oh yeah, we had all like the proper, like how their hair stayed up. I don't know.
God, no.
They had like proper Mohicans, like a mile high.
Yeah.
A couple of other scenes I wanted to mention that was cut. Apparently, when David wakes up in the zoo, he spits out the banker's thumb, which also I don't think would have worked. Because it's like then he would have known he's done something, whereas he didn't. He just don't think what he's done. Whereas spitting out a thumb, you're going to think, hang on a minute. There was the Nazi demon dream, was a lot more graphic.
Which that's like quite graphic anyway.
Yeah, I mean it was like exactly how much more graphic can it be? And also, did you know that the knife that was being held to David's throat in that scene was a real knife? So and the bloke behind him had the mask on. So he was actually really scared. He was thinking, like, you make the wrong move here, that's going to, like... So the fear... See, the thing is, health and safety back then was ridiculous.
Well, this is it. This is what led to
what they got away with, I don't know. Oh, yeah, and also another bit, when Jack... Which I would have liked to have seen this bit. Apparently, there was a bit when Jack eats his toast, it falls through his neck and onto his jacket, and he wipes it off.
Oh, through his wound.
Yeah, I would like to have seen that bit. I think that would have been, without it being too comical, I think it would have also been really good. And I love that little bit of flappy skin on his neck. But the hours in makeup that must have taken, I know that I think with David Naughton, Griffin Dunn, I think he got a bit wound up with the fact that people was concentrating more on the makeup than his performance.
Yeah.
But I think as the years have gone on, I think, they've like relaxed to it. They've realised that it's such an iconic film, and I think it stood the test of time.
It started like a new wave of horror in the 80s, because up to that point you had a lot of psychological horror, but the special effects horrors that came after that. So you had The Thing and The Fly in particular, those ones where they use bodies morphing into other things, with The Thing showing it into an alien or Jeff Goldblum turning into a fly. There was definitely heavily influenced from American Werewolf in London. Some of this, the work that was used in that. Rick Baker was actually working on The Howling. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Because that was around about the same time. And the wolf in this is obviously a lot better than the wolf in The Howling. The Howling I think is good. It's good, but it pales in comparison. I've watched The Howling. I think I watched it twice.
Did he start working on it? I think he originally started working on it, and then he was taken off of it to do American Werewolf. So
you can see little elements, I think, with like the claws and stuff, the way the hands
very
grow
similar.
in. Yeah,
very similar.
But it was almost like a practice for this film. And American Werewolf in London is so much better than The Howling.
Yeah, and also apparently the porno theatre was actually meant to be a cartoon theatre, showing old cartoons. Because it was written in the 60s. So by the time it comes to 1981, it turned into a porno theatre. But that was actually a real... Because I thought, whereabouts is that? Because I know now I think it's a Gap shop or something like that. But it was actually a little cinema. So that was a cinema. It wasn't a porno cinema, but it was a little mini cinema. So it was like a little...
But it's perfect where its location is, because it's right in the heart of Piccadilly Circus. It's not down the side. No. It's not round the back. He's got it right underneath the signs. Yeah. So when the wolf bursts out, it goes straight into the heart of London. It's literally like ripping London's heart out, because that would have been like one of the most populated places in London. It's like if it was in New York, he would have burst out into Times Square underneath the billboards and stuff. Yeah. But London, the way it's all spread out, and with the double-decker buses, it just looks...
It's so iconic. It was everything that you could... Like the black taxis. Like everything you could think about... Like if you sort of write down the most iconic things of London, what you think of London, it had every single iconic scene or item in that film that you imagine, like the policeman.
Yeah,
everything
Bobby on the beat.
Yeah. Everything was exactly... Oh, and also David Naughton's wife was the woman that says... She's the blonde woman in Trafalgar Square, where she says... Oh, maybe you just think you're some sort of lunatic or something.
Or maybe she thinks it's a prank.
Yeah, maybe she thinks it's a prank, that's it.
Yeah.
That was actually David Naughton's wife. So that's funny. How come he was fancying Jenny Agutter then, and his wife was there?
Well, he fancied Jenny Agutter a few years. You are allowed to fancy people.
Yeah, but then he was
and doing a sex scene.
Yeah, but he told her that he fancied her. I don't know. Is that?
Oh, I don't know. It's one of those. If your spouse is an actor, you need to have a lot of understanding. You know,
if your spouse is actually publicly declaring that they fancy the person they're going to do a naked sex scene with.
But yeah, that's American Werewolf in London. I highly recommend it.
From 1981.
Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please like and subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, maybe YouTube. I don't know, wherever we land.
Wherever you found us.
Yeah.
And we'll be floating around other places as well.
Like a bad smell.
Right, I want to sort of mention the film I'm going to do next week. Right, I'm going to go for something a little bit lighter, which is, I'm thinking maybe The Shore Thing.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, that was like
John Cusack.
That's it. And
directed by, was it Rob Reiner?
Rob Reiner, yeah, who's done Harry Met Sally.
And
so
Princess
it's
Bride.
a teen, yeah, it's a teen. It's like a teen. It's a teen. It's like a John Hughesy type sort of film, and it's a film. Yeah, I'd like to chat about.
Okay.
Just to lighten it up a little bit, so we can just do different stuff each week. So we can mix it up a bit.
I better watch it again then, because I haven't seen it since I was a child.
Yes,
so
you best watch it. Otherwise, you're not going to know what you're talking about. You just be sitting there nodding the whole way through.
But yeah.
All right. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.